Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us here on SABC News. You're watching SA Today with me, Flola Dwaba. Well, it is, of course, Workers' Day today, and unemployment has worsened from 30% to 32%, and the public servants did not receive an increase last year. It also seems that most labour federations are not happy with how employees have been treated. Celebrating Workers' Day, we speak to SAFTU Secretary General Zwelinzima Vavi for more about this day. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Vavi. Thank you so very much for joining us here on SABC News this afternoon.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting us.
Just a question to you, and I'm asking you this question based on the conversation I had just before speaking to you with the Labour analyst, I'm sure you know quite well, Mr. Terry Bell. And one of the things that he raised, interestingly, and this is really directly one of the things that you can speak to directly, he spoke about the fact that unions are in fact now, or have become now, part of the problem. And in a sense, I must agree with him in that I earlier heard COSATU President Zwelinzima talking about the fact that, you know, so many people have lost their jobs at the SOEs, like SAA, even here at SABC, SA Express, etc., and that more jobs are at risk of being lost. It seemed that you're speaking from a place of not being able to do anything about it, and that's not really what I remember unions being about. I remember unions being able to put action in place in terms of putting those rights forward for members, and it does seem that unions aren't as strong or as powerful as they used to be. Is this correct? I mean, as Mr. Terry said, that they are part of the problem now.
I don't think that they are part of the problem, but I think that they are dismally failing to unite, to end fragmentation and disunity, and to fight for what is good and what is in the best interest of their members. And I think that the unions have allowed themselves to be divided. The more the workers are divided and fragmented, the more employers' voice is increased, and the more the bosses can act unilaterally, as they are showing in the public sector, where they have succeeded to basically bolt out of an agreed contract with workers, and now threatening to impose a wage freeze until 2024. If unions were strong, united, speaking in one voice, not regarding their logos and colors more important than the interest of their own members, they would unite now and stop that from happening. And because they have failed to stop that from happening last year, the government now at the state-owned enterprises level is proceeding. Workers in SAA have not been paid for a whole year. Workers in Tinel didn't receive their monthly wages at the end of this month. PRASA is fragmenting, and we are being told reliably that Park Station is going to be halved off. ESCOM is being fragmented and divided into three pieces, is being allowed to compete against itself, and with itself subsidizing international multinational corporation, the 27 independent power producers. There's a crisis. We cannot be proud of the fact that as we celebrate May Day 2021, it's not just a crisis that we are facing of job losses, but we're also facing a crisis of a collapsing public health care system, which has become a horror for workers who are forced to go through that system. The criminal justice system is dismally failing us. We're picking up 58 bodies every day, and there's a conviction rate as low as 15% of people who are being arrested, down to 11% for women with allegations of rape. So there's an all-round crisis in the economy, in the political and social life of workers. We cannot be proud, and that's why. And let me repeat this as if we have not said this before, that the time for workers to unite is now, not tomorrow.
And what are the options then?
We dead in the water.
What are the options then for workers? I mean, it seems from what you're saying that they really actually can't be relying on the unions. If you're pointing to the issue of unions being divided and fragmented, I mean, workers cannot wait for that unity of the unions for them to get help for their issues and their grievances. So for themselves as employees, is there anything further that they can do as employees to help themselves in this situation? I mean, it also, one asks the question on the back of that of whether or not government is actually committed in helping or putting in place measures to assist workers.
There have been some very good examples, Flo. Whenever workers have united on the workplace, they have achieved something. For example, workers at Eskom succeeded to ward off an attack about 2-3 years ago when NUMSA and NUM members stood together in the picketing line and they defeated a government that wanted to impose a 0% wage increase. And during the pandemic, workers were marching together in all of the public health institutions across all of the countries, across all of the hospitals. And that was a powerful statement of unity. And whenever they succeed to do that, they can win something. For example, they force government to provide adequate numbers of personal protective equipment. So there are good examples that we can show. On the 24th of February, we were on strike at SAFTU. We received a very interesting message from COSATU supporting the strike. We supported the COSATU strike on the 7th of October last year. How we wish that we can be more consistent in ensuring that as we're facing a zero wage increase at the security sector, we can coordinate at that level and make sure that we speak in one voice. And that's where we are losing it. We're not consistent, and I don't think that we are doing this through a conviction that only unity for workers matters.
Yeah. And what's your message then to workers today, as we're meant to celebrate Workers' Day? I mean, celebrating Workers' Day at a time when, workers work continues to be, job losses, we continue to experience job losses and workers are being culled. I mean, how do we even begin to commemorate or celebrate May Day or Workers' Day or Labour's Day at a time like this? What is your message then today on May Day?
Well, there's terribly nothing to celebrate. There's absolutely nothing to be proud of at this particular moment. You've already spoken in your introduction about the rate of job losses in this economy. 1.5 million jobs were lost only last year. We have 12 million people unemployed. We have 63% of the population of young people now unemployed. We have 47% of the African black women unemployed. We have 52% unemployment in the Eastern Cape. Is incredible that we are tolerating these levels of poverty, inequality, and corruption in our society. That's the first point. But what is the point of articulating the statistics? We can't just afford to just analyze. We need to move into action. So the call that we want to make, in particular directed on the public sector workers, is that please coordinate this time around. Don't allow divisions on the basis of who is in alliance with the ANC. Let's coordinate and declare a dispute together so that we can coordinate the same disputes with the local government workers or in the local government sphere, in the state-owned enterprises where workers are facing hell, and even in the private sector, as I've just said. The bosses in the security sector are now turning against the agreement they have signed and are refusing to increase the wages of workers inspired by this terrible example of government. If we can coordinate the dispute and going on a strike on a single day across the economy, we will then force the government back to the drawing board. We will force the private sector bosses back into the into the drawing board, and we will be able to defeat the austerity, neoliberalism, and force government to put real solutions to the economic meltdown that have absolutely nothing to do with the coronavirus, because we were already in recession and in a crisis and pandemics of many kinds in South Africa before the coronavirus came in March last year.
And perhaps just in closing, you can speak to that, the dissatisfaction of workers, and obviously with it being exacerbated by the issue of us being, dealing with a pandemic, something that we've been saying all along and that workers have been saying all along. And interestingly, the president also raised, as he was speaking at the COSATU virtual rally, was the fact that, some workers actually risked their lives during the time that we were really deep in the midst of the pandemic, and then the very same workers are then treated quite badly, as we've seen. Perhaps you can speak to that, the dissatisfaction, the sheer dissatisfaction of workers at this time.
Absolutely. You start with yourselves as journalists at the SABC. We all gave you praises to say you guys have done a wonderful job. I was looking at the president when he was saying the same thing during his input in the State Capture Commission or Zondo Commission, praising the journalist. But he won't tell the public that the same journalists are facing a slaughter at the SABC. They are being butchered. And as we celebrate May Day today, many of them are languishing at home without an income.
Yeah.
Their cars are being dispossessed, and their homes are under threat, and their kids are being threatened with evictions in their schools. In the broader public sector, the people that we were praising, the doctors, the nurses, the health workers, the police, the correctional services, who put their own lives online to protect the rest of society, the South African population. The president is not saying, as he celebrates May Day, that we've actually pushed our thumbs into their eyes. We are not giving them an increase. We've bolted out of an agreed agreement. We are undermining collective bargaining. We are destroying, we are setting a terrible example to the rest of the private sector, which they are now regrettably following.
Yeah.
And we are the worst employers when it comes to treating our own workers with disrespect, which is absolutely unfortunate.
All right, so let's leave it there. You can take your phone call there. Thanks very much, Mr. Vavi, Zwelinzima Vavi, who is the SAFTU Secretary General there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.